Welcome, Edie. This is a very special day for me, right? Because I have known Edie, oh my goodness, it's been, I think, over 5 years. Over 5 years.
Mhm.
Uh, she's actually one of my personal mentors as well. Let me tell you that. And we met her when she was at Bank United, but she is an amazing individual, an amazing woman leader. Um, I've had a lot of fun with her in the last couple of years as well. And I thought it was really important to highlight Edie and have her come and share her story. So she's been a VP of IT organizational and change management. She's also had a lot of years as a strategist and vice president of quality assurance. And she was also a product owner in agile transformation, amongst many other things that she's done throughout her life, right? So I'm excited. Edie, welcome, welcome.
Thank
And
you.
I think Nelu, if you can go to if you can stop sharing and if you can stay in this mode, that would be great. There, awesome.
All
All
right.
right. Welcome, welcome. Edie, tell us a little bit about yourself and your background. We'd love to get to
Well,
know.
it's so much. So I may look a little stiff, but I'm really not that stiff. We've had a very long day, but first and foremost, I am humbled to have been asked to join this forum, this group of beautiful people, interesting people, many of you whom I'm had the pleasure to meet either through the workshops or because we've crossed paths in the work environment. Regina, first of all, because of you. You have given us a forum, a platform to be able to express ourselves, to share the learning all the time. I'll talk a little bit about my journey and how we crossed paths, but Regina's amazing. And so when she did the write-up on me, I nearly choked and I said, Regina, oh my God, how am I going to live up to these expectations? But I am grateful and I will do my best to entertain you. I'm really a little bit different in my professional environment than I am when I'm at home, and this is my home. So whatever we say here stays here, and this is a safe environment. And so we're going to have some fun with the questions that Regina is going to shoot at me.
Awesome. So this is like a family. And for those of you joining us for the first time, welcome to our family, right? You see how everybody kind of knows each other. We've been around for a while, but it's a very tight-knit community. And we love being in a safe environment where we can share, have fun, and, just kind of let loose a little bit, right? So Edie, tell me a little bit about your professional journey. And I have a great question for you. I'm going to put you on the spot from the first question. If in retrospect, someone would have told you when you were starting out what you would have ended up doing at the end of your career or throughout your career, would you have believed them?
No, and I would have never thought that I would be here in technology today because I originally wanted to be a nun.
A
And
nun.
if I couldn't be a nun, I wanted to join the Peace Corps. I wanted to be a missionary. But being from a Hispanic family that doesn't let you go, and being what I call, I know there's a question that's going to come up. I brand myself as an analog woman living in a digital world. So I was born in the 50s, and I'm very proud to say, and it took me a long time to get here, so don't judge me, that I'm 68 years old. So would I have thought that I would have been in technology? Never. I thought I was going to be doing the rosary or giving out food or somewhere as a missionary. That was my original passion. So
So tell us a little bit about your career path. How did you start out?
actually it's very interesting, and I'll be very transparent. One of the things that happened to me graduating high school and going into college was the fact that we came from not a very privileged background. Now they call it areas of gentrification. And in those days, I grew up in the ghetto. Okay. I grew up in the ghetto where there was a struggle for housing, for education, for being a woman, equality. There was not a lot of opportunities. However, my parents did the best that they could. So when I graduated high school and I entered college, I went to Hunter College. my mother, who was a factory worker all her life, um, had we had gone to Puerto Rico actually in the ninth grade, and she had just obtained her high school diploma because of her personal challenges of being taken to New York, being brought back. And we actually went to high school together in Puerto Rico. And there was no adult education program. So I'm in the ninth grade. She's in the fourth year of high school equivalent. We're both wearing uniforms, and here we are. So fast forward, and we come back to New York, and now we're both going to college. And so there was no preparation back then. There was no mentoring. There was no coaching. Nobody told my parents about financial aid, for example, information on financial aid or how to get into a college. I actually received a scholarship to attend St. John's University. And since I went to Catholic school, the nun told me, oh, honey, don't even pay attention to that. That's not, you're not going to make it in St. John's. And I believed her. So on my own, I got myself into Hunter College while my mother got herself through a paraprofessional program as a teacher into New York University, right? And they provided financial assistance for her because they were trying to attract Hispanic females, right, into this particular program. So here we are. So now we're in college together. And as we're moving through college together, I'm helping her with her papers, and Regina and I shared the same stories because she also attended college while her mother was in college. And so here we were trying to get through college together, and I was running out of funds because I had no financial aid. So I was working, attending school. My mom was doing the best that she could. And it came a point where I said, what am I going to do? I can't afford it anymore. Maybe if I just take a little step back, and I got married, right? So in hindsight, if we do a retrospective, challenge number one, maybe I should have rethought that one, but I got married. So I got married, and now you really have no money. So now you have to figure out how you're going to make a living. Um, had my first child, that marriage wasn't successful. Now I'm a single mom. And so I'm looking at what is the career I need to work, right? So anywhere that I went, even though I had almost ready to graduate because I was doing internships in the social work field, everywhere I went, they asked me, do you know how to type?
So
Can you do steno?
your original area of focus was social working.
Social work. So I went to, since I couldn't go to the Peace Corps, right? And definitely I wasn't becoming a nun. That was too late for that, right? I got married, I had a baby. I pursued social work. So here I am, I'm trying to feed my daughter, poor choices that I've made that I'm holding myself accountable for. And so they ask you, can you type? So I went and I took a 1-year program at a business school, and I got a business certification. And so the focus really was I needed to learn how to type faster and take steno. And so that took me to my first real job because it was with Taylor Business Institute, which was affiliated with IT&T at the time. That's how back we go, right? When that was still an entity, an organization. And I came upon this gentleman who was one of my first mentors. There were no female mentors to be found at that time. And my interview went like this. So I see that you have some college. That's great. He was from Argentina. I see that you can type. And I see that you can, how many words a minute? 85. And you take steno? Oh, I take steno. Yes. How many words? 120, because if I was going to do this, I was going to be the best at it, right? So he was so pleased with me. And then he gave me that key question, that very important question, Regina. He asked me, you're not the kind of girl that when you get your monthly menstrual cycle, are you going to have a problem? You know, is that going to impact the way you work? And I just looked at him, and I really needed to work So I said, absolutely not, with all the dignity that I could muster, right? So here I go. Um, he was so phenomenal that he saw the potential in me and he constantly pushed me. That led me to do one of my original translations for Raggedy Ann and Andy and the copyrights out of Mexico, out of Brazil. He just trusted me. And then the big one happened because at that point, when I joined him, I didn't have a child yet. I had to go to him and say, uh, Mr. Regal, remember that question you asked me about my menstrual cycle and if that would impact? Well, you don't have to worry about that anymore. And he says, why not? And I said, well, because I'm pregnant. 3 months pregnant. So now, what do we do? So he was so wonderful. He said, you know what? Try to dress a little bit loose. And this was a time of pantyhose. He said, we're going to keep this a big secret. We're not going to tell anybody until we can't hide it anymore. And so Rene Regal took me through all of the training in marketing. He was senior vice president in marketing at that time, gave me the opportunity, overlooked, my pregnancy, had a fabulous, I had the biggest baby shower you can ever imagine. I mean, these people were phenomenal. And I grew in my path there until I had outgrown them in terms of my career growth. And so that took me to my second opportunity, Regina, which was with Catholic Relief Services, right? And again, can you type? Well, now I can type, I can do steno. I had been exposed to marketing to different areas. And I joined the contributions department in an administrative capacity, right? And IBM walked in one day through the door. Imagine this. I'm in the contributions department, and this is what it meant. Catholic Relief Services is one of the largest organizations that provides relief globally. In those days, they used to send their donations cash, very rarely a check. And you had all these silver-haired ladies that would open up the envelopes, count the money, and then sit there and do the receipts. IBM comes in one day and says, to my manager, who was a woman at the time. And by the way, she was not very happy that I was there. I was like, she was intimidated for her position. And so one of the things that I ask all you beautiful ladies here is never put another woman in that position. Be the one that extends the hand to lift them up, right? But we overcame that. And IBM came in and said, well, who volunteers? And I said, I'll volunteer. So I'll volunteer to automate this manual process with these little old ladies into an automation opportunity. And that, Regina, is how I entered the world of technology. So what do you think about that story? And could you imagine me with all these little old ladies? That was quite interesting at the time.
Oh, that's awesome. Let me ask you a question. Going back to your mom, right? Because it sounds like your mom was significant in the path that your life took, right? If you were to think of a characteristic that when you think about your mom, like what's the one word characteristics wise that comes to mind that means a lot to you?
Mhm. She was determined. She was a force to be reckoned with. When she set her mind to accomplish something, there was no challenges or obstacles that she could overcome. My father was the total opposite. He was totally shy and he felt women belonged in the house. And my mother was constantly stretching him and making him feel uncomfortable and supporting me in my decisions. So we were in cahoots behind my father's back, right? So he felt I should just be married and have babies and go home and don't come back. And that's it, return receipt not requested. My mom was the total opposite. So in whatever I did, she was my biggest cheerleader. And she was really tough on me. Whatever I did, I had to do it well. If I went to, they made a sacrifice so I could go to private high school, Catholic high school. but then, they figured that that would be it, right? And then I would get married. So we ran out of steam and finances, but she always found the way to figure it out for me, help me. And sorry, guys, a lot of times behind my father's back, right? So she was amazing. And she not only got her bachelor's, she got a master's in education. So she went from factory worker to that. And she was one of the founders of the bilingual programs in education. Again, with my uncle, because my uncle was in politics, and at the time they were promoting those programs. Um, her, she went through all of that. She also was assistant principal at a junior high school, and she ended her career as assistant principal in a Catholic private school. So she really, education was her passion, bilingual education was her passion, and she pursued that track and she stayed focused. But she was a force to be reckoned with.
Right. So you, I see who you take after eating as well, right? Because it's in your blood, but it's amazing. And sometimes, you meet people and you don't know their story, you don't know their background, and what makes us who we are today. So that's amazing. So thank you so much for sharing that. So tell us how you got into the technology. You said that IBM came into the Catholic Relief Center where you were working, right? So tell us a little bit about that, and then what led you, to your QA
Yeah.
experience.
So one of the things that IBM did really well was when they take you under the wing, they really equip you. So every step of that automation process, I had to take a course. I had to get certified. I was certified in project management. And that time, automation was word processing, right? So whatever IBM told me to do in terms of my subject matter expertise, I did it, and I took the next step, and I just kept accumulating these certifications, but applying my knowledge, right? So I'm I'm sometimes a little weary of people who have a whole lot of paper and they don't have the experience. And I didn't want to be one of those people, right? Because in my mind, I'm lacking that a college degree that would put everybody over the top. So my validation was, let me continue add on to these certifications. So that's how I got into the career with IBM. I was equipped. My focus that I really enjoyed was training, the training arena, and the software quality assurance, working with the data center to ensure that that conversion had uh, gone well, right? That there was quality. And so then I pursued everything that I wanted to learn about software quality assurance and all of the leaders in that field, and all about Japanese and manufacturing and Deming and et cetera, et cetera. I did that on my own because I wanted to constantly understand what my job was. And that position allowed me to join an all-male team, 15 developers, in a company called Insurance Software and Systems. They delivered reinsurance and insurance software to captives and other agencies. That allowed me to travel to Europe. I traveled to Norway, every state. It was at the expense of my children, who never knew where I was, because every 2 weeks I was like, where's Waldo? Where's Edie? But that cemented my technology background. I became the quality assurance director, and I joined their implementation teams that traveled for the software, did the training, the implementation. So that was absolutely amazing. And that company was owned by a 3-star retired brigadier general, who was constantly being interviewed at that time during the Gulf War. And they interviewed us and they interviewed me, and they said, how is it to work for Colonel Baxter? You know, and I said, it's fine, because in his army, there are no men and women. There were just people who were doing things and accomplishing the tasks. And, so it was a great experience to work with him. Although he was military in background, he had a whole different mindset, right? So he saw people, he didn't see gender. Sometimes that got a little funny, right? Because if you don't see gender, there's boundaries sometimes that you have to continue to tell them, you've crossed the line. I'm not a guy. I'm not one of the dudes, I'm still a girl. I just happen to be on your team. So that was my ISS experience. And the engineers that were there, the developers that were there, really supported me, really respected me. I've always learned how to, I grew up, by the way, with 13 male cousins that my grandmother used to take care of. So I knew how to be the leader of the wolf pack, how to protect myself physically, emotionally, and so that prepared me to step into that role and not be intimidated, right? Because that could be a little scary when, and this guy was like 6'4". I don't know how he fit into a cockpit because he was Air Force, and he was intimidating, and I never allowed him to intimidate me, and he respected me for that. So that was the ISS transition, and that really cemented where I was headed, right? And that really gave me the confidence that I really know software quality assurance. I'm passionate about it, right? Um, I really can deliver, and people respected what I had to say. And so I lost my I got rid of my pantyhose at that point, and I started being known as PMP, pearls and pants, because my trademark was pearls. I love pearls. And so that was a transition. And once I started wearing my pants, I didn't take them off. And so we moved forward on that.
So I know you've been in the QA role in multiple.
You're freezing.
Oh, can you hear me okay?
Now I can.
From the QA perspective, I know you worked in different organizations, right? So what would you say are the top things to think about to have a successful QA organization? What are like the top three things? Just super brief, if you don't mind. Would you say to be a successful, have a successful QA organization, what are like the top three things that you would recommend?
Okay. You have to be a subject matter expert, right? You have to know what software quality assurance is all about. You have to have courage, because software quality assurance is highlighting things that are not going well, right? Understanding the risks, and also be able to be prepared to have mitigation against those risks. And so besides courage, you have to have a good work and moral compass, right? Because you can be swayed to do things that are not right for the company, so you have to do the right thing and do the right thing right. So those would be the three things that I would say.
Awesome. So in which organizations did you work in the QA area? If you don't
Okay.
mind.
The companies.
Okay.
Oh, in New York, one of the things that I did was, after working at ISS for about 10 years, I had the opportunity to move out of there, because now I've had two little challenges in terms of my marital, right? I got married a second time. I had three children, and here we go again. I am single again. And with ISS, my salary was very low. So there was a developer there who asked me if I would leave with him to do a startup to build an SQA practice, which I did, and that was a huge risk for me. So under that company, it was called Test Force. I worked for companies such as AIG, JP Morgan Chase, Citigroup. I reported to the CIO of Pfizer Pharmaceuticals in headquarters. I did business continuity planning for the Republican National Convention way back when VHS was still a thing. So there is proof out there. Thank God that no one has those tapes anymore. I think my husband saved one. So those are the organizations that I work with. So in New York, I had a fabulous reputation of being the queen of QA. And if someone needed to resolve an issue, I had the reputation that they would contact Test Force and get me in there, right? So those are the major players. I did Y2K for huge companies like Madison Square Garden, so the rollover, Soft Davis, publishing companies, major companies for Hertz and that whole conglomerate. So I had a solid reputation. We never had to do any cold calling or campaigning. We had built a reputation through this company, through Task Force, because it wasn't just me, it's just the people that came together were so fabulous, dedicated. They were subject matter experts in their fields. And my job was to train them into quality assurance and teach them best practices and then launch them to all these different projects. So that particular company went from $100,000 in receivables to $15 million in receivables in 3 years. Okay, so that gave me that reputation. And then I come to Miami, right? And so we have to start reinventing ourselves again. So in Miami, nobody knows me. I have some beautiful people on this call that helped me through placement. Norma Allen is one of them that has her own company. She's very modest, always looking out to where was I going? Was I employed? Making the right connections, never taking a commission or a referral, just trying to help. And I landed at World Fuel Services, again, top 100 Fortune company, reporting to the CIO. And I spent 10 years there as well, building an organization from the bottom up, building an organization of really capable people, empowering them, training them. And that is when I got introduced to Agile.
That was going to be my next question. I love it. Yeah, so tell us about that. How did you enter into the world of Agile?
So one of the things that I think that I'm grateful to God for is that he gave me common sense. So when I went to World Fuel Services and I was building this organization, I did logical things, right? I empowered people. I was a servant leader. I knew that we were in a waterfall development life cycle, but I said, we have to shift left because all of these people have to be working together. And I used to call it a pod or a tribe in those days, right? A tribe, right? They have to be working together, and the developer and this and that. And so I was doing Agile before I knew that I was Agile, right? That's one of the criteria, right, of being Agile, right? And so it's people before processes. So I'm a people person. I'm a servant leader. The other thing that I learned that I knew that I was doing Agile is because, oh my God, how many times have I pivoted in my personal life or in my career? I'm constantly pivoting. And when I met you and Rick and I received additional training, and Rick, one of his coaching, he would tell me, refocus, focus, hit yourself, you pivoted, now we're going to refocus, we're going, and I said, wow, I've been doing this all my life. I just didn't have a label, right? After I left World Food Services, I went to Office Depot. And again, in corporate, reporting to the CIO. And I came across a coach, Angelique Leon, who's very well known in the Agile community. And we had two sides of the house. We had e-commerce, who had two really good Agile coaches, and they had been Agile for about 2 years. It was like a well-oiled machine, but they never connected with the piece that was non-e-commerce, regular web development, application development. And we had 23 teams colliding. So I convinced one of the VPs to allow us to pilot Agile on that side of the house. And he said, we don't have a budget. So I said, okay, I'm going to put a focus group together, people that volunteer during lunch, and I'm going to bring them food, and they're going to come. And they did. And then Angelique said, I can volunteer during lunch. I don't have to bill you for any of this. And we did. And then I had one VP who said, I'm going to give you my entire team, and I want to see what you could do with Agile, and he did. And the results were so phenomenal that 23 teams across both sides started looking at this and said, you know what, I think we could do it. The other thing, Regina, that I didn't know that I was doing is I created a release train. So that's kind of, so we were doing agile, we were doing safe, and I didn't have the formality of it until I met Angelique and I came to Office Depot and it was adopted. And so when I left Office Depot, the last day we did a training camp for 300 employees on what was agile, why we were utilizing, why we had to pursue agile in all areas, right? And what it meant to each of the departments. So that was that. But the best story is getting to you. So what do you say about that?
Let me ask you, I know that we had the pleasure of meeting you at Bank United when you were there, right? You were also in the QA space, but then you had the opportunity to be involved in the agile transformation, right? Um, and each organization has its own agile transformation experience, right? And we can't always compare one to the other because each company's approach is different, right? And some companies are more ready than others. But based on your personal experience, what would you say are key factors that are needed for a successful agile transformation? What would you say, Edie?
So at Bank United, I have to also give credit to Marcelo Lopez, right? Who was here's the introduction where we meet Regina, we meet Rick, I meet Marcelo, and he and I become attached at the hip because successful transformation is about, I hate to use the word buy-in, but we had a challenge. Awareness. Bank United did not know what agile was. So building that awareness and that foundation, providing training, that was the second piece that Marcelo was just pumping out those classes constantly, bringing in folks to assist us in the coaching. That's when you and Rick came in, and trying to reach the C-level. So that was the hardest, right? So if you don't have awareness, if you don't have training, if you don't have the support of a good coach or a company such as Transformation Experts to lead you through the process, and then you don't have buy-in at the C-levels, it was tough. So David, Ralph, and I at the time, we were trying to do bottom up, top down, and then trying to squeeze, the C-level in the middle to see if we can motivate them. So it was, you were there, and that's how I fine-tuned my abilities in the agile space through Marcelo's coaching, arm wrestling, etc. We didn't see eye to eye all the time. And then you bringing in the gentleness that you bring, and then Rick coming in and being like, okay, guys, this is enough, right? So this is how we're going to work it out. So you need all of those components for
No,
a good agile transformation.
it's amazing because I love talking to college students, right?
Mhm.
And the last time I spoke at one of the universities here locally, and I'm looking at all these kids, and I remember when I was in college, I didn't know where my career was gonna end up. You have an idea when you get started, and the beauty of being able to reinvent ourselves over and over again, no
Mhm.
matter how old we are, and no matter what stage of our life we're in, whether it's reinventing ourselves personally or professionally, you got to make sure that the young kids know that, right?
Right.
That they know that, everything shifts and pivots, and that in order to grow, we have to be able to shift and pivot with the tide.
Yep.
And that's how we learn. And we always say in Agile, we got to fail fast, right?
Yep.
In order to move forward. And that's where we have our deepest learnings. When I used to launch Agile teams, I used to say, hey, in our personal lives, we fail fast, and that's how we grow. So how different is that at work? It's the same thing. You have to have the same approach and facing those challenges head on. I'm amazed at all that you've gone through, Edie. That's amazing, right? You definitely have had to be an advocate for yourself and reinvent yourself multiple times. So That's awesome. That is awesome. I do want to open it up a little bit for some questions and then we'll continue because I know we've had a lot of different conversations. Does anybody have any questions for Edie? Any questions? Any questions? Don't be shy. Bring it on.
Looks like they're like I don't know, like excited about what her story. I don't know if they're like, oh, I have this specific question. Maybe they're like inspired.
See.
I have a
Okay.
question for Edie. This is Vanessa. Hi, Edie.
Hi, I'm so glad you were able to join us.
Yes. I know as you were going through your story, and I know just from working with you for many years and being my mentor, what's the best advice you can give us as we are going through, you know, especially as women in the IT org, as you're going through the change and everything isn't fully lining up and you're trying to influence a lot of what's happening around you. What's the best advice you can give us on how to manage some of those situations?
Well, because I know Vanessa, I've seen her transformation, right? So she, as a woman, when we have a passion for something, the way that we express ourselves and communicate has to be different than the way a man expresses themselves, right? So one of the things that I've learned is if you men and women speak a different language. So in attempting to influence in the male dominated field, you have to speak with precision, speak based on the facts. You may be passionate, but you have to contain that, right? And some of us have this effervescent personality. I think I got to the point where I wanted to retire because I could no longer contain myself, right? And so I knew that in order to be well received and Vanessa influenced, and you and I have had this conversation many times, it's your delivery, it's your
Yeah.
communication, it's your control. So
Yeah.
associate yourself with people that want to promote you in the sense of they're aligned to what you're saying because you've stated it to them with control, with precision, and based on facts. And then continue to deliver that message. And the more you repeat that message and you deliver it in that style, I think you will start to make an impact. And I've seen that in your growth in your career because I keep my eye on you.
Thank you, Edie.
Thank you so much, Vanessa. Anybody else have any other questions for Edie?
Hey, sorry for my voice, but hey, Edie, I have a question for you. So, how do you so I see that you did an RTE role as well because I'm in RTE role right now, and it's very challenging. I think agile coaching is much easier than the RTE role. So, uh, uh, like, what metrics do you show to the business and to the whole team? How do you make them agree like, okay, this is the metric that I'm gonna, we will as a team, our PI to PI progression.
So when we did that at Office Depot, we were yet not SAFE certified. I don't think that SAFE was even in the picture. We were just beginning to launch it. The conversation around that and the release train and what we're doing that really impacted these different teams was the fact that we were looking at the potential collisions that we were having, right, in terms of the scheduling of events. So when we spoke to them about PI planning, taking into consideration what were the deliverables. Imagine 23 teams attempting to deliver stuff at the same time. So we actually had to do a visual. Some folks are visual learners and show them if we continued on this particular schedule, these were the collisions that we would have. These were the impacts and from a quality perspective, this is how the code would be reflected in production because of something that we did. So I'm sorry, Marcelo, but I'm going to say this, men are kind of visual, right? So they want to see it. So yes, you speak with the facts, but a picture Vanessa, actually, Marcelo always says a picture speaks 1,000 words. So in your delivery of what you're trying to attempt, I would say use those tools in terms of what you're going to measure, what you're going to show, and always talk to them about what the cost of poor quality is going to be. And total cost is not only in the defects that may go into production, but the impact that they will have to the rest of the resources if this is not properly planned. I hope that helps you.
Yeah, so did you use any management tool like Jira or something?
Oh, Jira, Jira is our friend. You can tell Marcelo, yes. And again, Office Depot used a separate set of tools. At Bank United, we were using Jira. The utilization of tools, it's another whole different topic of conversation in terms of adoption. Right now, I am working with Regina and Rick at Intermex, and that's how Belen is here, by the way. She's at Intermex, and so they have a whole different set of tools. But pick a tool, pick a lane, stick to it, make sure that it is utilized, and it's not just having a tool for the sake of saying that we have X tool in the organization. Jira was good for us at the time.
So any specific metrics that you wanted to share that you send out as a whole, like you said, it's a 2017, right? And as an RTE, what kind of metrics, just one metrics, if you wanted to send it out to everyone, to business, okay, this is the progression of the epics and deliverables that we're working on this PI planning.
Right. So remember that from my perspective, I'm looking at it from a software quality assurance perspective, right? So one of the metrics that we did at the time was test cases. And at that time, they were not fully agile, but as related to the stories that were presented, right? We talked about what was the test coverage. The test coverage talked about what were the possible impacts that would be encountered. So test coverage analysis was one. For me, my SQA metrics are just standard, right? So test cases, execution, defect ratio, those are my metrics from a software quality assurance. How much coverage, progression, etc.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. All right, next question.
Hi, it's Norma here. How do you, Edith, how do you typically assess the current state of a QA process in an organization that they think they may be using it, but they're really not? Or, how do you assess their current state of QA process?
So that's an excellent question. And that's exactly what I'm doing at Intermex with transformation experts. I am conducting a maturity assessment for the SQA process. It's a hybrid approach that's based on CMMI and TMMI, right? But to reflect the culture of where we are at Intermex. So what we're doing is I'm conducting a series of interviews, personal interviews with very pointed questions to determine what are their processes. So there's different areas that I'm assessing. I'm assessing organization, processes, policies, etc., environments, the capacity of the team, the skill sets. So through this survey that we've created, TE and I have created, and that I'm porting, that information will provide the data, because when I go back to the C-levels, I'm going to speak to them about I'm going to be backed up by the data that's going to be the output of these surveys. So I would always start, it didn't matter where I went, and that's a great question, Norma, is where are they? And Regina knows there's a difference where you think you are and where you really are, right? Because at the top, they really don't understand what is happening really at the team levels, which is where the magic happens, right? So that survey will highlight what are the areas of deficiencies, but not only that, I want to celebrate the areas that they're doing really well, right? Because I just got there. So they've been doing this for a long time. And so there's a secret sauce there that I'm going to discover through these surveys. So always an assessment first.
Thank you.
Awesome. Edie, let me ask you a question. You said you have four kids, right? You have four kids.
Yes.
So from the personal perspective, what are some techniques that perhaps you shared with your kids, you know, as far as your lessons learned when overcoming challenges in your life and everything that you've gone through?
Okay, so I'm going to share a secret and I'm going to out somebody. So Ariel Aguilera is actually my daughter. She's the youngest. She's a social media director. I'm very proud of her. And she has some really high-end clients. And so I asked her to join because I want her to have more exposure, not just to me. But there's a technique that I use, okay, in making decisions that I call the BABE. Right?
The babe,
The babe, the babe, B-A-B-E. And so when in 1987, Barbara Macadakis, this woman, was working with me, and she said to me, I'm going to give you advice. It cost me $1,000. At that time, $1,000 to me was like $1 million, right? $1,000, and in your decision-making process, you're going to do a BABE. And a BABE is, you just ask yourself, it's the potential of having like the ability to create two alternate endings to a story. You know how sometimes you watch a movie and you go, what if it would have ended this way, and you have a different result? So in a BABE, not only are you creating, the tool that I use is if it's a really serious situation, my pros and my cons, I weigh them, you know. And in the BABE, I create a story, and the story goes like this. Let's say, for example, I'm going to speak to Marcelo. I want to buy a high-end luxury car. So I'm talking to myself and I go, babe, wouldn't it be so cool to arrive in a Maserati? Oh my God, how would people look at me if I arrived there, right? And I'm observing, how do I feel about that? Well, wow, I feel pretty cool, right? I've arrived, I have status, okay? And I continue to ask myself babe questions. And at the end, I look at the story. I have a Maserati, it's in the parking lot, everybody's looking at it, how great. In the second version of my story, I said, I have a Maserati. Did I pay for it cash? No. Do I have a, how much is my payment? Oh, that doesn't feel too good. How much is my insurance? And I go down the line trying to assess, babe, can you really afford a Maserati? Do you really want a Maserati? Even if you could afford it, is there something else you could do with that money? And at the end of that story, you're either going to say, you know what? I look pretty cool in that Maserati, you know, that red Maserati, and I'm going to get it. Or, you know, Edie, let's take a step back, and maybe I'll go to a car show and enjoy other people who can do that. So that is a tool that I have taught my children to utilize. And so you can ask them, hey, do you do a babe? And it's so funny because sometimes they're, you know, we're going back and forth and we're sharing a story, and they'll say to me, you know, I did the babe. By the way, I have 4 children. So 2 boys, 2 girls. The boys don't do babes. Okay, they're just not into it. But the girls are really like, I'm going to do a babe. So that's one of the tools that I use. So pros and cons, and just, you know, getting the feel and being real with yourself, you know, just getting into that. How does that feel? Yeah.
I love it. There's a question on the chat. Taz, I don't know if you want to ask it or you want me to read it. Let me know. She's still here. All right, I'll go ahead and read the question. It says, have you had to address pay disparity or advocate for pay equity in your career? Or even if you haven't, what advice would you provide on this topic?
I have, and you have to be very self-assured. This is what I'm going to tell you is I've never asked for a promotion. I've never asked for a raise. And that's a problem for me because I can advocate for you all day long. But when it comes to myself, I have a problem with it for asking things for myself. But later in life, and you shouldn't wait this late in life to advocate for yourself, right? I have gone and said, again, I've learned that data-driven conversations will get you more than emotional. I can tell you I am the best. Well, quantify that, qualify that. What do you mean you're the best? So when I've gone to a place where, especially during performance reviews, is probably the best time where you have that opportunity because it's an open door conversation. I've gone with, these are all the things that I have accomplished. I have increased my delivery by X%. Oh, tell me how. These are the projects that we've delivered. I've managed a $10 million budget. You know, I've always come on budget, on time, etc. So for me, I learned very late in life. So ladies and gents on this call, don't wait that light to do that for yourself, but go in there with the data that supports what have you delivered and why you deserve it. I think one of the challenges that I'm having with the younger generation is that they feel like entitled right away, like they want it now. It's like, you know, they want it their way, they want it now. And baby boomers suffer the opposite. We wait so long to, you know, to say, I think I should be recognized, you know, I did a good job. So we have to find that happy medium, right? So data-driven information, the facts, be confident in that you have delivered value to your organization.
Thank you. And thank you for honesty. We appreciate that, right? Because that's your lessons learned there.
Mhm.
Let me ask you a question from the leadership perspective, and we're going to turn this into an exercise, guys.
Yeah.
What would you say? I want everybody to put it on the chat, and I'm going to ask Edie what her favorite leadership characteristic is. If we were to ask, hey, you know, give me a word that represents your leadership characteristic, I'm going to ask everybody actually to go ahead and put it on the chat, please. Let's share with each other. Edie, what would be yours? What would be yours?
In my field, courage. You have to have courage to be able to stand up. And when you're the only one in the room saying, this is not right, this should not go into production, this is going to impact your revenue, this is going to cause chaos, you better be prepared to make that statement and have the courage to be the voice for the ones who don't want to say it out loud. So courage for me.
You and in the chat we have words such as passion, humility, kind and supportive, boldness, empathy and supportive, awareness, collaboration. Awesome, guys. Fearless. A lot of fearless frankness. Very good. Thank you so much. All right. Edie, if you had some words of encouragement, right? For all leaders, all leaders. I mean, we're here, we're women, we're men, right? We're all leaders that are up and coming, that are struggling to get ahead at different stages of their career and different stages of their personal life. What are some last words of advice that you would leave us with?
Yeah. So I am always grounded in faith, right? So for me, that's very critical and important. So it doesn't matter what walk you're in or what faith you're in, you have to have a strong belief that there's a higher power greater than yourself that's watching out. So I'm grounded in faith. I want to empower other people, be that person who supports another woman, particularly another woman that brings them up, right? That empowers them, that highlights them. If there's, as you said, Regina, we've been through many personal struggles, and there have been times that the only person that I had was first my faith, and when my mom was alive, my parents. So find yourself a good mentor, a good coach, a good rabbi, a good priest, someone that you can lean on for that type of support in your life. And always look, I love the words that I saw, to have empathy, to be supportive. I love those. Be fearless. Be fearless and know that one of these men or women on this line will be there to be your biggest cheerleaders, right? To catch you. And so if you fall, and celebrate you when you rise to the occasion. So that's what I want to tell these fabulous men and women on this call, but the women, because we have it slightly harder. And so those are my words.
I'm very inspired. Oh my goodness. Thank you so much. You have an amazing story, so much to share. And I know you have even more, right? And I'm very humbled that you've come to this group and shared with everybody. So I wanted to Nelu, if you can, um, bring up the PowerPoint because we're
Sure.
not done. Don't leave yet, guys, because we still got a little exercise that we want to do.
Absolutely. Let me go ahead and bring it in. There we go. Okay. So I think we're gonna start by here. Here.
And look at the chat. Look at the chat, Edie. Everybody's still responding there, which is amazing, right? So this is our what we call the Empowerment Manifesto, International Women in Leadership, hashtag I will, right? And I want you guys to leave today with looking at these powerful words. You know, I will empower, I will rise, I will lead, I will excel, I will connect, I will persist, I will inspire, and so much more. I want you guys to put something on the chat that you want to walk away with, in something that you're going to do, in something that you want to live, in a goal that you want to do. If you guys can share it on the chat, that would be amazing. And we can open up the floor because we still got a couple of minutes, or we can speak to it. If this inspires you, who wants to share? Who wants to share something that they want to do, something that they want to overcome? And even if it's just a word, what do we want to share? Let's hear some voices. I see Grace, I will overcome.
I think rising to challenges with resilience is very important because even if you're in a leadership position, there's a lot of obstacles and you must be resilient in order to continue moving forward.
Awesome. That's beautiful. Thank you so much. Let's see.
For me, I will overcome. Uh, I think my schedule this year and next year is very hectic because of the many things I'm engaged with, school and other things. Uh, so sometimes I feel overwhelmed, but I know that it's just temporal and that I'll overcome.
And you will. That's Grace, right?
I will overcome,
Will,
yes.
I will. Awesome. Anybody else?
I
Let's
feel that I need to stop feeling discouraged that I'm not going to get a job in as a scrum master because I don't have all the experience that everybody else has. And so I guess I'm gonna have to have the courage and I do have the faith, and I pray every night that God will. I believe that God has already picked the right job for me, so I thank him every night for finding that wonderful job that he's already found for me.
That's wonderful. And if you hear Edie's story, she had situations where, you know, she kind of fell into the opportunity, right? And it might have not been something that she was looking for at the moment it had happened, right? So that happens, Julie. Absolutely. You know, you will find that. Wonderful. And then I see Taz. I know Taz, I'm gonna read Taz's. Says, I will empower others to access their greatest potential and ignite their excellence. Love it, love it.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. All right, guys. So
And for Bettina, I will be intentional with having data-driven conversation.
Love it. I love that. That's phenomenal.
yes, absolutely. Thank you. Thank you, Edie, for sharing that one. Let's
Yeah,
see.
it's Samantha here. So I think I will connect. It's been a long time. I didn't, because before COVID, I was really involved in all the meetups. My office was in Charlotte, so now I'm in Tampa based. But I joined so many, and I was the host for so many meetups. And I disconnected, I think, in the COVID, and now I think I just restarted. So I will connect. So I will connect with and the uplift fellow women leaders, recognizing the power of collective strength.
Awesome. And Sumita, come to our Saturdays, Agile Coaching Clinic. Some great conversations there.
Okay, sure.
Thank you.
I love it. I'm reading Vanessa's I Will Rise and Not Get Caught Up in the Turmoil and Focus on the Opportunity to Learn and Upskill. Yep, my next step on the ladder will be amazing. And it has been amazing because I've watched you grow. So be your own advocate and focus on yourself. And when you bring that gift to the table, Julie, you have something to offer. Somebody's waiting for you. So that'll be, I love those words. I will rise and I will connect also. Regina knows that I've had my challenges in connecting and networking. And by the way, I'd rather be behind the scenes. This podcast is so uncomfortable for me that it stretches. So I will stretch myself.
See?
Also.
And she did an amazing job, guys. That's amazing.